There is someone in your head approving every purchase you make. The craziest part is that you put them there. You may not know who they are, a parent, a colleague, an older version of yourself you're still trying to impress. Sometimes it's nobody specific, just a vague composite of everyone whose opinion has ever mattered to you, collapsed into a single silent judge that sits behind every financial decision you make. A specific figure in a specific account that once reached changes everything. They are wrong, not about the number, but about what happens when you reach it, because most people who achieve the number don't feel free. They feel watched. That feeling, that persistent low-level awareness of an invisible audience, is the thing nobody in the financial freedom conversation ever talks about. This is a video about that feeling, where it comes from, and why you will never truly feel financially free until you understand what's actually driving it. There is a story buried in a 400-year-old play that explains modern financial behavior more precisely than anything written in the last century. Almost nobody has connected it to money. In 1899, Thorstein Veblen coined the term conspicuous consumption, the deliberate visible display of wealth, not for the utility of the thing purchased, but for the signal it sends to the people watching. He was describing the Gilded Age. He was also describing your Instagram feed, your neighborhood, your car, your kitchen renovation. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. Veblen's conspicuous consumption describes the obvious performers. What it doesn't account for is the degree to which almost every financial decision, even the ones that feel entirely private, is made with an imagined audience in mind. Not a real audience, an imagined one. The family you are trying not to disappoint, the colleagues you are trying not to fall behind, the version of yourself you are trying to prove wrong. Consider the house. Most people will tell you it's a practical decision. Location, schools, investment potential, but ask them to describe it and something else emerges. The neighborhood, the appearance from the street, whether the kitchen looks the way kitchens are supposed to look. They are not buying shelter, they are buying a statement. And the statement is not for them. Even the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, the supposed rejection of the performance economy, has its own performance, its own imagined audience. The frugality becomes a badge. The savings rate becomes a status signal. The early retirement becomes a story told to people who haven't retired early yet. Even opting out becomes a performance for a different crowd. In 1611, Shakespeare wrote what most scholars believe was his final play, The Tempest. Prospero has been exiled to a remote island. He controls it entirely through magic, commanding spirits, orchestrating the lives of everyone around him with extraordinary precision and power. By any material measure, he is the most powerful figure in the play. He is also the least free. Every action Prospero takes is for someone else. The storm he creates, to bring his enemies to the island. The romance he orchestrates between Miranda and Ferdinand, to secure her future, to restore his political position. The control he maintains over Ariel and Caliban, because that is what a ruler does. Because there is an invisible audience of order and expectation that must be satisfied. Absolute power, no freedom. Because everything he does is oriented outward, toward other people's perception of him. The financial parallel is not subtle. Most people building wealth are building it for the same reasons Prospero runs his island: to correct a wrong, to prove a point, to secure something for someone else, to satisfy the expectations of an imagined audience that may not even be watching. The first generation immigrant building wealth to prove something to a country that doubted them. The person who grew up poor buying expensive things not because they want them, but because they never want to be seen as poor again. The professional earning far beyond their needs because stopping would mean admitting the work was never really for them. All of them Prospero, all of them powerful, none of them free. And then there is the final act. Prospero breaks his staff, drowns his book of magic, releases Ariel, Caliban, his enemies, Miranda into her own life. He gives up everything that constituted his power. and in doing so becomes, for the first time in the entire play, free. Not because he gained anything. He gains nothing materially. He becomes free because he stops performing. He stops orienting every action toward an audience and finally acts entirely for himself. Shakespeare called it the rarer action. Not the heroic action, not the powerful one. The rare one, the one almost nobody manages. Spending for yourself does not mean hedonism. It does not mean ignoring the people you love. It means something more specific and more difficult. Making financial decisions without an imagined audience. Not the book that signals your intellectual identity to people who see your shelf. The book you read alone and tell nobody about. Not the trip that photographs well. The trip that matters to you and is impossible to explain to anyone who wasn't there. Not the investment that makes you sound sophisticated at dinner, the one that serves your actual future without making a story anyone else can follow. Self-determination theory, developed by DC and Ryan, distinguishes between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The research is unambiguous. Intrinsically motivated behavior produces deeper satisfaction and better outcomes than extrinsically motivated behavior almost universally. And yet most financial behavior is extrinsically motivated. Most financial goals are set in relation to other people. Most financial decisions are made with at least one eye on what someone else will think. Financial freedom is not achieved when you reach a number. It begins, just begins, when you can look at a financial decision and honestly answer one question. Who is this actually for? Not the justification, not the reasonable explanation. Who is it actually for? If the answer is genuinely yourself, not the self that performs for others, not the self that corrects old wounds, not the self that manages perception, then you are closer to free than most people ever get. If the answer is something else, then you are still on the island, still running the tempest, still waiting for the audience to release you. And here is what makes the tempest genuinely haunting. At the end of the play, Prospero steps outside the story entirely. He addresses the audience directly. He looks at the people watching and he says, "Let your indulgence set me free." Most readings treat this as Shakespeare's personal farewell, the playwright stepping out from behind his final work to take his bow. But read it differently. Prospero, in his final moment of apparent freedom, is still looking outward, still asking, still performing, still waiting for the audience to release him rather than simply walking off the stage himself. Even after breaking the staff, even after drowning the book, even after releasing everyone, he still turns to the crowd. He still waits. Maybe that is the most honest thing Shakespeare ever wrote. That the imagined audience never fully disappears, that even at the moment of greatest self-possession, there is still a part of the human mind that turns toward the crowd and waits for permission to leave. The rarer action is not the elimination of that impulse. It is the recognition of it. Knowing when you are performing, knowing who you are performing for, and choosing, say in that specific moment, to act for yourself instead. Not always, not perfectly, just more often than you did before. That is what financial freedom actually looks like. Not a number, not a retirement date, not a house or a car or a savings rate. A question you learn to ask yourself before every financial decision you make. Who is this actually for?